Okay, now.
I'm the top dog in the league, homie.
Yeah.
Let's speak on it. It's a stretch for anybody to reach on me.
Don't reach.
Just breathe on it. Don't tell them. They gotta know it's me
They know
on it.
it.
Won't kick it on me and go for 3
know
on you.
it.
You couldn't guard me with the cleanest armor.
know.
I got it covered.
Yeah.
These corners.
Yeah.
I'm the top dog in the league, homie.
That me.
Let's speak on it. It's a stretch for anybody to reach on me.
Don't reach.
Just breathe on it. Don't tell them. They gotta know it's me on
now.
it. We don't kick it on and go for 3 on
now.
you. You couldn't guard me with the cleanest armor.
Yeah.
I got it covered.
Yeah.
These corner
Yeah.
like yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of D's Corner. I'm your host, D. With the week 9 in the books, we're moving forward to week 10. But before we get to week 10, we have the trade deadline, which is November 5th at 4 p.m. So I've already done trade deadline sellers, and this is my video on who I believe will be a trade deadline buyer. It's going to be some of these teams that are going to be playoff teams, teams that are trying to compete with the Chiefs, obviously, but teams who are right there in the thick of things and who really have the Super Bowl in their sights. So with that being said, guys, please do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. Hey, it means a lot to me. Doesn't really cost you guys much of anything to do. All right, so let's jump into the video. Situated. All right, so for trade deadline buyers, one of them is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. We've already seen some of the trades that the Baltimore Ravens have made, acquiring Deontay Johnson, free agency last year, obviously picking up Derrick Henry. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Who saw the Steelers leading the AFC North at this point in time? They do have actually all of their divisional games are coming up down the stretch here, so it's going to be a really make or break rest of the season for the Steelers. So I definitely think that the Steelers need to be trade deadline buyers. Also, the Detroit Lions. The Lions are rolling right now. We know that they have an injury with Aiden Hutchinson. You can see my video for the 5 trade ideas I have for them to replace him. But I definitely think the Lions should be trade deadline buyers as well. I think this is the first time they're 7-1 and since like 1960 something. So Dan Campbell, I love what he's got, how he has this team playing and believing. The Minnesota Vikings. They are on a skid. They just beat the Indianapolis Colts, but I think they dropped 2 before then. You're going to have to pick up you're going to have to get some pieces. We saw them trade as well. They lost Christian Darrisaw, went out and got Cam Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We just watched a really, really, really good game last night with the Bucs and the Chiefs. It's evident that the Buccaneers do need wide receiver help. They still need help on defense as well. Especially with how the Falcons are playing. I think the Falcons swept the Bucs this year thus far, if I'm not mistaken, which only hinders a little bit of that attempting to be in the playoffs for the Buccaneers. So they're definitely going to have to be buyers as well. And obviously the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think the Chiefs are still going to do everything in their power to get Patrick Mahomes in a three-peat. This is something that is historical. This is something that would, in my opinion, this will put Patrick Mahomes above Tom Brady. His first 8 years in the league, he has 5 Super Bowls, 3 of them back to back to back, multiple MVPs. He's the driving force. Last year, he had the worst pass catchers he had. What we did see last night is D-Hop's not going to separate. But when it's one-on-one and those 50-50 balls, there are more like 70-30 balls when you're throwing them up for D-Hop. So Baltimore Ravens, I think they should go after Jonathan Jones, and these are just going to be players that I think would fit what they're doing. Some of these players will be cost efficient. They shouldn't cost them a lot of draft capital or anything of that nature. But they do need help in that secondary. The Baltimore Ravens defense is not playing like Baltimore of the past, the Baltimore Ravens that we all grew up on, that we all knew. Their defense is allowing too many teams to stay in games or come back in games, especially late. And that's just once you get to the playoffs, you don't want your defense allowing people to come back, especially if Patrick Mahomes is the guy who you are setting your mark for. Harold Landry, I think the Ravens have to get back to being able to get to the quarterback. Harold Landry is a player who can do that on a woeful team in Tennessee, who should, in my opinion, be trying to blow it up to get the quarterback of their future and build around whoever that player is. Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore is a person that he's a player I expect to be traded today. Within the next few hours, to be honest with you. I think some of these teams, Baltimore, Kansas City, some of these teams who are in need in the secondary, Marshawn Lattimore is a really, really, really good player, a top-notch corner when he's on the field. He does have some injury concerns, but I think you can bring him along. He's going to be a player that you're traded for the playoff run. Azeez Ojulari is a player that I think the Ravens should definitely go after. Again, they need to get after the quarterback. Azeez is showing that he can do that in spot duty, and his snaps have been increasing with Kayvon Thibodeau down. But Azeez Ojulari is playing some good football right now. You should be able to get him for a 4th or a 5th pick, and you might even be able to get something in return. And Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney is a former Baltimore Raven. He played with him last year. He knows the system, knows the team, knows the atmosphere, knows the culture, knows what they mean on defense, and he was a part of that #1 defense last year. So I think going back and getting Clowney would also be a really good move for the Baltimore Ravens. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need wide receiver help. And in my opinion, I'm going to give you 3 that I think they should go after. Mike Williams of the Jets. Not necessarily in need of a #1 wide receiver. I think George Pickens has been doing extremely well. But what we've been seeing lately from Russell Wilson is that moon ball, that deep arc ball that he's throwing up, that 50-50. Mike Williams, 6'4" wide receiver, big like Pickens, would allow some of the younger guys to be able to work more out of the slot and grow. But you're going to need more weapons, especially as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Darius Slayton is another one. Darius Slayton, I think, will come in and be a solid #2. He has the speed to get downfield. Somebody that Russell Wilson should be able to drop one of them moon balls right in his bread basket for him. That sounded very Diddy-ish, so I apologize. I meant no Diddy at all. But Darius Slayton is a player, I think, when you look at who he's played with, Daniel Jones has been his quarterback his entire career. Who wants that? Just being honest. And the guy has been able to put up some decent numbers. He's a nice vertical threat, but a solid #2 wide receiver. And I think he would fit with what the Steelers are doing. And Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. Not sure that this one would actually take place or happen, but I think Pickens and Sutton with Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, Freiermuth, Washington at tight end, a decent offensive line, Russell Wilson. I think that would be a solid playoff team. No one's expecting this team to light things up in the playoffs, but this is a defensive-led team. Russell Wilson is doing what he needs to do. The offense is being able to do what they need to do. All they have to do is not turn the ball over. These 3 players, in my opinion, would help Russell Wilson and help this offense ensure that they're a playoff team. Next up is the Detroit Lions. Harold Landry. Again, these are players who, this is a team who has to replace Aiden Hutchinson. We watched them beat the Packers. Jordan Love was a little gimpy. They didn't get to him as often as I think I would have liked, especially with him somewhat being a sitting duck. If Harold Landry would have been there, they definitely would have eaten a little bit more up front. But Harold, I'm talking about Aiden Hutchinson, I'm sorry. But Harold Landry, he's a player who could come in and possibly help ease that loss of Hutchinson, and then going into next year gives you two nice bookends on your edge position. So this could be a move for the present as well as the future for the Lions. Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith is the player that I think the Lions are going to go after and get. I think he will be a Detroit Lion before the trade deadline. I just think this is a player who they witnessed before. They've gone against this guy before. He is a solid veteran. He can get after the quarterback. He has a nasty attitude on defense. He is going to be what the Lions are looking for, in my opinion. And Chase Young. Chase Young is a former 2nd overall pick. He's a first-round talent, Ohio State kid coming in, and he's somebody that you could possibly sign. He's only on a 1-year deal, so depending on how well he plays, you could possibly sign him, and now you have a nice rotation moving forward. I don't think he's on a 1-year deal. I don't think he would definitely not cost you a ton of money moving forward, especially with how his play has dipped over the years, but I think Chase Young would be a good addition for the Detroit Lions as well. The Minnesota Vikings. We've seen Minnesota, like I said, they run a 2-game skid. We've seen Sam Darnold and the offense not really look as potent. The defense is still playing lights out. I think you could do some more tweaks and additions on the defensive side of the ball. But Minnesota is a team that we were not expecting to be here with J.J. McCarthy. We sure as hell wasn't expecting it with Sam Darnold. Greg Newsome, I think Cleveland should be, if you've seen that, they were one of the seller teams that I had for the trade deadline. When you have Deshaun Watson, you have that cap issue that you're going to have with him moving forward. You're going to have to try to come up off some of your good young players, especially players that you're possibly going to have to pay. You've paid Grant Delpit, you've paid Denzel Ward. J.O.K. got hurt, and I think he's out for the season. He was another player that I could see the Browns trading, and another player that I think would have fit well with the Vikings. But I think Greg Newsome will be able to come in. He's a solid corner and gives you a 3 good corner rotation, and he still has Shaquem Griffin as well, with Stephon Gilmore and Brian Murphy. Nate Hobbs, again, I believe that Minnesota needs to test their secondary, continue to add pieces to it. Stephon Gilmore is a little older in the tooth. You want to try to keep him and his play as peak as possible. Getting a player like Nate Hobbs allows you to give Gilly a little bit of breaks, and make sure that you're able to rest him when needed when getting to and worrying about the playoffs. And Isaiah Simmons, pace has gone down. The linebacker pace has gone down. This Isaiah Simmons is just a defensive player. Let's be honest. He can play anywhere on the defense. He's a safety linebacker hybrid. He's played nickel. He's a 4'3" guy. He's 6'3" or 6'4". He is an extremely athletic freak, and I think this is somebody that Brian Flores would thrive with. He would thrive with Brian Flores. We've seen what I can't remember, buddy from the Dolphins, how he's been able to drop. He's got like 5 sacks, 4 picks, or something like that. So I think Isaiah Simmons' freakish athleticism, coupled with what Brian Flores is able to do on defense, I think that would be a perfect pick, or a perfect pickup for the Minnesota Vikings. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, like I said, we just watched Tampa Bay put on a show last night, going up against the reigning back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. They lost in overtime, but it was a really, really exciting game. I think Tampa needs to ensure some things off on their defense, but you're definitely going to have to get a second wide receiver as well. Darius Slayton is going to come up. The New York Giants should be sellers. If you go back again, like I said, check out my NFL trade deadline sellers. Darius Slayton would be a good pickup in a lot of these playoff teams. And just because you're going to the playoffs now and you have a chance of going far in the playoffs, I think you're going to get lights out football for some of these players, and Darius Slayton will be one of them. KJ Osborne would be a nice addition. He wouldn't cost them much of anything from New England, another team who is, not looking good, but they are young and building. KJ Osborne would be a nice addition to Tampa Bay. He's a player who can play in the slot and give you some of the catches and targets that Chris Godwin, that you now lost with Chris Godwin's injury. Isaiah Simmons, he's another one. I just think Isaiah Simmons' athleticism, with where you can play him, the positions he can play, his versatility, coupled with his athleticism, his speed, him being able to rush at the quarterback, drop in coverage, chase and tackle. He can play linebacker, he can play safety, he can play defensive end, he can play edge. Whatever you need him to play, I think this guy can play. And some of these teams, I think, should definitely target Isaiah Simmons. Lastly, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Straight to it. Greg Newsome, they lost a corner, fractured his ankle. Greg Newsome should be on their rosters. He should be on their list. We watched them last night. The secondary, they do have some issues in the corner position. They're still young back there, but they're going to want to go ahead and try to shore up some things, especially as you're going forward trying to make this playoff push. Marshawn Lattimore, this is the one that I could see really happening. If Baltimore Baltimore and Kansas City should be trying to outbid one another for Lattimore services, in my opinion. I think he would definitely come in and be able to allow Trent McDuffie to play in the slot and chase and do what he's best at. McDuffie's played phenomenal football. He's an all-pro corner. He gets left off a lot of people's top 10, top 5 lists, but he's a phenomenal corner. Coupled with Marshawn Lattimore, Jordan Reed in that secondary, Nick Bolton up front, Chris Jones, Carl Loftus, Uche, they just traded for recently from the Patriots. I think this would be a solid defense, adding Marshawn Lattimore. Azeez Ojulari. Can't go wrong with having more and more pass rushers. This freeing up Chris Jones is only going to help this defensive back end. So if you're not going to go secondary and you beef up your defensive front, Carl Loftus, Uche, Chris Jones, and Azeez Ojulari, if you double up Chris Jones, one of the other 3 are definitely coming through. What Spags does defensively and how he runs his scheme, really, really phenomenal. Lastly, Demarcus Robinson, who is a former Chief, who is lighting it up right now with the Rams because of injuries, but he caught the game-winning touchdown in overtime against the Seahawks this past Sunday. But he's comfortable with Patrick Mahomes. He's played with Patrick Mahomes. He's played with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been there before. He wouldn't cost them a lot. He would be able to come in and get right back to work, and it only would benefit D-Hop as well as Kelsey and Xavier Worthy. I could see them trying to get another speedster just to shore up everything, as you saw yesterday with DeAndre Hopkins. A lot of his pass catches were contested catches. We know that's what he's good at. We know that's what he does. I think the Chiefs need one more piece offensively, especially with what you're able to do with Mecole Hardman, getting him in 4 or 5 touches, swinging the ball out on reverses and whatnot, gadget plays for Xavier Worthy. You do still need another second wide receiver, D-Hop, Demarcus Robinson, with those 2 speedsters, as well as Kareem Hunt running the ball. And let's not forget Trav. I think that's a recipe for a solid offense, and this offense would then couple or go hand in hand, if you will, with that defense. We've seen Patrick Mahomes is clutch. Did have a little bit of an injury scare where the whole stadium went silent. It's been fine. He's okay. The Chiefs are the real deal. They need to continue to try to build offensively, just with the players that Patrick has a good rapport with. And I think Demarcus Robinson is one of those guys. I definitely think the Chiefs are going to be making a move today. We'll see. Hopefully I'm right on a lot. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You guys let me know who you think will be traded or what teams you think will be buyers and sellers in the comments. Y'all have a good one.
Spazzing on the beat, they think I'm crazy. Got it under control, babe. You don't want smoke, all you see is the same.
LB tapping, keys and making waves. Ay.
Step back, keep your distance. Ain't no telling what I just may do. I've been vibing, minding my business. Throw one up if you can relate to. Said if I ain't got it, I make do. Can't be stuck waiting on a breakthrough. And I don't need everybody praying for him. Ain't no telling who you niggas pray to.